following is a GNC podcast production. Welcome to Geek Addicts, a pop culture podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Geek Addicts, the pop culture podcast where your hosts, me, Matt, and the cars that like to come by every 5 minutes. How you doing, Matt?
Unfortunately, I'm doing all right. Unfortunately, the cars might be a little bit more of a presence in this recording, and to be honest, probably through the summer because it gets really hot in here, and there's no AC in this room, so I have to open the windows. It's a little rough. That one might have been a motorcycle.
Yeah. Oh boy, how you been?
Oh, I can't complain. You know, it's been a week. I feel like the week just dragged on forever. I know I say that just about every week, but like this week especially. I think part of that is because my in-laws came down to visit partway through the week, and whenever they come down, we always end up like nothing like crazy, but we end up doing like something like a little shindig, a little cookout, whatever. We'll invite a couple people over, and we did that on Wednesday, and just the general vibe of it kept tricking me into thinking Wednesday was Friday. So the rest of the week just dragged forever because every day felt like Friday from that day on.
Yeah, I know that feeling. No, this whole week's been like I haven't had any time to actually like catch up on anything. So I've just been like I'd get home, I'd sleep, or I'd record a podcast. I tried catching up on some manga this week. Because that's been my it's been something I've been falling behind on. Like I finally read the latest Sakamoto Days, which is cool. Especially because that's getting an anime pretty soon.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they just announced it. Spy Family Season 3 just got announced, which I'm looking forward to.
Excited for that. Especially like I don't know how far they're gonna go with the coverage, but I think I'm only behind like a chapter and like one of those little short chapters that they have. But aside from that, I'm caught up, and I'm really liking where the story is going. So I'm really interested to see where that goes, and how far they're gonna like. It's probably just gonna be another 12er, honestly, because there's not like a ton of material, but there's definitely enough for another 12er.
Yeah, as long as they adapt a certain arc in Volume 11, I am going to be very excited. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't read, but yeah, there's some really exciting stuff that's coming up, and this is just one of those series that I really enjoy.
I personally really hope that they adapt the arc that takes place right afterwards.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Also, when Volume 12 finally comes out, so I can read some more because I'm a physical only guy with the manga at the moment.
Understandable. I mean, I'm still gonna be buying the physicals and probably rereading them whenever they come out, but I couldn't wait. I had to just read for. I already have Shonen Jump. I might as well fucking utilize it, you know.
True. Very true.
But yeah, aside from that, I'm mostly for a game in the gaming sphere. Pretty much been sticking to Persona this week. Made some progress. Actually, right before I came over here, I beat the fuck is his name? I forgot his name. Right, the fucking Void Quest guy, the guy who's supposedly
Mitsuo, I think his name is.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, Mitsuo. Yeah, he claims he's the killer, and I definitely get the serial killer vibe from him. But I'm only 40 hours into this 100-hour game. So either he's not the killer, there's another killer, or he's going to get out of prison or jail. I don't know what, but something's going to happen because I'm not halfway through the game.
I won't say too much because I want to avoid spoilers, but I will say he is a killer. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, because I thought it was kind of weird because his little shadow self just kind of vanished at the end. It didn't like do what all the other ones have done. So I'm interested to see where that goes.
My favorite, I love his dungeon. Like Void Quest is like my favorite dungeon in the game. But
it's super cool.
I love in so they didn't. This wasn't in the original version, but I love in Golden that they changed the boss theme to an 8-bit version of I'll face myself.
Yeah, I literally just did that battle, and as soon as I like realized that that's what they were doing, I thought that was fucking awesome. I love when games do that.
I think
So
the
it's fun.
sound. I think in the soundtrack that track is named like Shin Miitsu Tensei or something like that,
Mhm.
as a
That's funny.
reference to the Shin Megami Tensei series.
Mhm.
But yeah, Void Quest is a fun one.
Yeah, but I literally finished like the cutscene where we like called the cops on him and everything, like right before I came over here. So that's where I'm at in the game currently.
Hmm.
And as I've mentioned on the Superpod Discord, I'm pretty much come to the conclusion that I'm just gonna romance everybody possible, just because fuck it.
Get ready to get ready to feel like a jerk later on. That's all I'll say.
Well, you know what? Like I pretty much came to well, all right. So I had already like in the game started dating Chie before I had even met like any of the other girls. So I had already locked myself in at that point. And by the time I got to that, like started meeting everybody else, and I don't know, I just came to the conclusion that I'm not doing my first run right if I don't burn some potential romances. So
Well, I mean, Persona 5 does it so much better. Like Persona 5, the player route is just the payoff to the player route is just fucking hilarious. In Persona 4 Golden, you just feel like a jerk.
yeah, that's fair. I
The
mean,
pay the payoff's not
the
nearly as fun.
the payoff in Witcher 3 is pretty great if you romance everybody.
Oh, five,
I
they
won't
made an
spoil it for when you actually get to that game, but
yeah.
it's pretty hilarious.
I'm assuming you're gonna play Persona 5 eventually, so I won't spoil what happens in 5, but they make an entire joke out of the whole idea of romancing everybody, and I mean everybody, not just the party members.
Fair enough. Yeah,
So
I will end up playing 5 Royal at some point, but it's probably going to be spaced out a decent amount from this one because this game already has been a pretty tolerant, and I've enjoyed every second of it. So don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of games out there that I haven't played yet, and if I start putting all of my time into these long JRPGs, which I've already committed myself to playing the Final Fantasies and Dragon Quests, so I'm already set into that. I don't need to add Persona to the list.
yeah, and honestly, you'll likely play Persona 4 again before you move to another Persona
hmm
because
um,
you gotta get the one playthrough isn't enough. Like you need a second playthrough to actually experience everything.
yeah, for sure. I'm definitely gonna do a new game plus after I finish it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm definitely significantly enjoying it. I was cutting it kind of close. I didn't realize until today, because apparently you only have until August 12th to do the Void Quest dungeon.
Mhm.
It's August 8th in the game right now. It took me a while to figure out how to get the information on them. Like,
Yeah.
so by the time I was like, oh shit, I should just go ask the shitty cop who just constantly gives me information that he's not supposed to.
Oh no, I've said too much.
Yeah, exactly. um, but yeah, I've been enjoying that. That's been fun. I obviously I know you're not going to tell me, but like that hospital nurse is weird.
Um, I won't
I started
spoil
doing
it.
the janitor quest line or whatever, the janitor job, and yeah, it's bizarre.
It so I won't spoil it, but it goes places you wouldn't expect.
Okay.
It's a very good
Well,
social.
it's already kind of um given some major hints. It fades to
Well,
black at some very opportune moments.
yes, it does. I will say it kind of leads you to think one thing, but the later parts of that social link will shock you. It's actually it's one of the more interesting ones in the game.
Fair enough. Yeah, I ended up doing that one specifically just because I when I was looking at all the different jobs, I saw that one increases courage the most, and courage is usually the skill you need to do certain dialogue options. So that's what I kind of prioritize. Although most of mine are only like a tick away from being maxed out.
Oh, wow, you've done pretty good. A lot of playthroughs, like well, here's a little hint that I'm not sure if you noticed or not, but you'll notice when you're doing like certain actions throughout the game or like dialogue options, you'll notice like the little like musical notes that will appear above players' heads when you make an option.
Mhm.
If there is one note, you made the wrong choice. If there's two notes, you made a semi good choice. If there's three notes, you made the perfect choice, and you're going to get the most points for that.
Mm-hmm. That makes
It's a
sense.
little,
There's a similar mechanic in the Sword Art Online games that I played before, because a lot of those have like dating side quest stuff, not quests, but like dating sims built into those too.
yeah. In 5, they stylized it a lot more, so it's much more noticeable. But
Mm-hmm.
it's present in 3 and 4 as well.
I gotcha. But yeah, aside from that, let's see. I did another little mini arc of One Piece this week, which means I literally only have Wano left to catch up with
Nice.
the dub. Let's see. I finished Bukai, which was interesting. I gotta say, like, there's a lot of things in Kai that, like, especially Bukai, like the final chapters. I don't know. There's just a lot of things that I feel like I liked better in the original dub. Even though, like, I know this is like the more accurate script and everything else, like, there's just certain things that I liked better in the original
The original,
English
so
dub.
Kai like definitely moves at a better pace, but the original had so many like little mini things that were just charming.
For sure. And it was like honestly like little things in the story in the original Z dub that I feel like was really clever writing. Um,
Mm.
like for example, there's a scene while Gohan is fighting Boo with Go Tanks absorbed, and he says a line in the original Z dub. It was he's pretty much quoting Piccolo from the Saiyan saga, saying something along the lines of like, "Oh, that hurts, but facing your fears would have hurt a lot less." And it's pretty much like word for word quoting something that Piccolo said in the Saiyan saga when he, with Gohan chickened out and stuff. And I feel like that line works so much better as like a mental, like a mind game kind of thing.
Mm.
And that's not in the Kai dub. And I don't know, I just feel like that makes it kind of miss something. Because I feel like on top of the fact that Boo is just overpowering Gohan, I feel like the mental aspect, like the head games that he's playing with him, just worked so well with the scene.
Well, I always still think like the original, like one of the biggest shifts between the two for me is like the Saiyan saga when Piccolo's training Gohan. In the original dub, you get all this like training stuff, and then like in Kai, it's like, and then suddenly Piccolo cared.
Yeah, right.
They
Well,
cut all of that.
I mean, to be fair, that is how it happens in the manga too, and that's kind of the point of Kai to be more manga accurate. But
True.
no, I definitely feel like that kind of filler is the kind of filler that I'm totally down for.
I mean, like when I think about Dragon Ball Z, there isn't a ton of filler that's really bad. I mean, like the Gohan playing with his dragon stuff, that was kind of pointless, but
yeah, but that's not as much of that as a lot of people tend to think,
I know.
or
It's just
people misremember it or whatever. Like,
I'm grasping at straws to actually find filler that's really bad in Dragon Ball Z because there really isn't that much.
I mean, the stuff that generally people tend to point to is like Garlic Jr. and then like the Other World Tournament. But I honestly like both of those
I mean,
arcs.
Otherworld Tournament gives us like one of the best characters that only appears in fucking filler.
Yeah, and um, on top of that, like Garlic Jr. is like the only arc in Z that doesn't involve Goku at all.
Mm.
And it was really cool seeing like we didn't get another Gohan Piccolo story until Superhero. That's how long it took for it to happen again. So
I
I
mean,
mean, it
it
was
was
a
worth it,
very
but
significant. Yeah, it was a very significant thing, and for a very long time because it was the only time that happened. And Kami and Popo were doing stuff like there was a really fun like pretty much turned the entire world into like zombie vampire creatures. Like it was a really interesting arc.
I
It
feel
was really
like,
confusing as a kid watching it
well,
because
yeah,
we didn't have the Dead Zone movie at the time, or if we did, it was hard to find. Um, but still, it was it was a very interesting filler arc.
I feel like a lot of the hatred for like those like particular arcs comes from like a lot of like internet personalities who have just like they have this like purist mentality and they just kind of like crap on it, and the freaking vicarious like opinions of like fans kind of just grow off of that and they don't actually experience it themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
That, and I think like
Um,
a lot of modern anime like Naruto and like Bleach and stuff have just kind of like tainted like people when it comes to filler.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, Naruto and Bleach really shat the bed on that one.
I think like because like I mean I grew up with Inuyasha, and Inuyasha has some of the best filler in anime, mostly because you don't even realize it's filler until you read the manga.
Yeah, when I watched Inuyasha, I didn't know any of it was filler, honestly. Like, I
Yeah,
completely went over my head. Um, but yeah, aside from that, I rewatched The Last. Um,
still a good movie.
let's see. Yeah, I had only seen it the one time before, so I figured it was time for a rewatch, especially since we did those episodes of Naruto, and I've been watching OG Naruto with my wife, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna throw that on. Um, so yeah, I did that. I watched Your Name for the first time, which great movie.
Fucking love that movie.
Um, it was a fantastic story. The art direction in that movie was top notch. I fucking
The
loved the art in that movie.
Shinkai makes really great films, and I still gotta watch Suzume. Like apparently Suzume is really good.
Hmm. But
Uh,
yeah, I definitely want to check out more anime movies like that.
I'd highly recommend the movie he did after Your Name was Weathering with You. That's another really good one.
Okay. Yeah, I had a lot of stuff to check out. Um, let's see what else. Oh, and I finally watched the sequels to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Finally got around to that. And
Oh yeah,
honestly, gotta say, I feel like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the weakest of the three. Maybe it's just because I've seen it too many times, but like going all the way back to when it first came out in 2005. But I honestly think that Prince Caspian and Voyage of the Dawn Treader, especially, are very good movies.
yeah. I remember liking them. I think the Lion Witch and the Wardrobe is just the one we remember the most. It's also the most iconic book, so I feel like people kind of have
True,
higher expectations for it.
that's true, but I don't know. I just feel like people hold that one on a pedestal, and it's honestly like my least favorite out of the books. But being no, maybe second least favorite. I didn't care much for the last book.
Hmm.
Um,
Did they ever adapt that, or did it just ended on unfinished?
no, they only did the three movies when Disney had it. Now I think Netflix is working on a series.
Let's do it
Um,
again. Because
what's
that's
funny
just
is I think the Netflix Narnia was announced at the same time as the Netflix Avatar, so it's been in the works for a while. So
yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Well,
I really
Netflix
want them. Hmm?
Netflix Avatar doesn't give me a lot of hope for adaptions of Western material.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is Netflix is pretty 50-50.
They need to have the original. From what we've learned, they need to have the original creators somewhat involved because One Piece worked, Avatar did not, and
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they're going to be hard pressed to get the creator on board for Narnia,
true,
considering he's been dead for like 50 years.
true. Unfortunately, I mean, the thing with Narnia that's going to be tough on them too is there's already like multiple adaptions,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
people
but
are
at the
gonna.
same time, there are some books that were never adapted, like Magician's Nephew, which is one of my
True.
favorites. The Horse and His Boy. Um, what's one of the other ones? Oh, Silver Chair. That one's really good. I like that one. That one
I
would
mean,
have been the sequel to Voyage of the Dawn Treader if Disney had continued.
I have my anthology book over there somewhere. It's like the big ass like book that has all the stories in one.
Yeah, it's got like the big Aslan on the front.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I've
got the
had
same one.
I've had that for years. I still love the. It's cheesy as hell, but I love the BBC original version of Lion Witch in the Wardrobe.
I want to rewatch that now.
I just love the stone table, just like like just breaks in half. So lame.
I literally haven't watched that since I was like 7, so it'd be interesting to go back to it now.
That's the one scene I always remember because I'm always like, the damn table just falls apart.
Just to put it into perspective, the last time I watched it was on a Blockbuster VHS. So
I watched it. Last time I watched it was in 4th grade on one of those TVs that was mounted to the fucking ceiling, so you had to watch the whole thing like this. It sucked. But yeah, that was a time.
Yeah, for real. Well, 20 minutes in, we should probably start touching on our topic.
All right, Jesus. So, speaking of things that are old, and 20 minutes, 20 years old, we're old. PS2.
Yes. Yeah, that's the one that I just kind of threw out there because, like, I have so many memories of PS. I mean, just this particular era of gaming in general, like the era of PS2, Game Boy Advance, GameCube, original Xbox. Like to me personally, I feel like that was like the golden age of gaming.
In terms of games coming out, I'd agree. In terms of actual like competition, this generation to me is legitimately one of the biggest curb stomps in like gaming history.
That's fair.
Because it's no secret the PlayStation 2 is the most successful video game platform ever created. Like the gap between PS2 and Xbox, which was the second place console, is like miles long. Like it is like wasn't even close. And then there's an even bigger gap to GameCube because as much as Nintendo fans don't like to admit it, the GameCube was not that successful.
Which is ironic because like there was a lot of PS2 games that ended up on the GameCube. So it's like they had everything there plus the Nintendo stuff for the most part. So you think it would have been better.
It's funny too because a lot of people don't realize the PlayStation 2 was actually the weakest console of the three in terms of
I believe it.
Hardware because obviously it came out first. Well, technically, this generation's a little weird. Technically, the Dreamcast started the generation, but the Dreamcast was like the Dreamcast was meant to compete with like the N64 and the original PlayStation. So when PS2 came out, and the hype. Well, no, I shouldn't even say PS2. When the hype train for PS2 came out, it killed the Dreamcast before it even had a chance. Which is a shame because the Dreamcast is a great little system, even if it's struggled a little bit. But yeah, PS2 comes in and the DVD player alone is what made that console.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the vast majority of people that I knew that owned PS2s literally just use it as a DVD player.
Oh yeah. So,
but at the same time, every PS2 that I have ever owned personally, for some reason, there was already a code set for like the rating system, whatever, the rating blocker, and I never knew what it was ever. And every single PS2 I've ever owned, I don't know why, and I could never figure out how to reset it.
Mine was 0000. That was our code.
That's what everyone always told me it was. Never worked though.
Well, so here's the key. When you first started up the PS2 and it gave you the option to create the code, most people mashed through it and it was always 0000. You probably just got unlucky and those PS2s had codes previously installed. I mean, nowadays, if you're using a PS2 as a DVD player, why? Because you get DVD players.
It's kind of no point.
Nothing.
At this point, it's cheaper to get a DVD player.
It's cheaper to get a Blu-ray player at this point.
True.
But yeah, at the time, the reason why the PS2 was such a smash success was DVD players were expensive back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And the PS2 was by far the cheapest DVD player because they sold the PS2 at a loss. And it worked in the long run because here's a little numbers for you. Released in 2000, the PS2 as of today has sold an estimated 155 million units.
Jeez.
To put into perspective, the its second place console of that generation, the Xbox, which released in 2001, sold 24 million.
Jesus.
Further perspective, the GameCube only sold 21.74 million.
Yikes.
So you can kind of see what a lot of people like, why I jokingly refer to this generation as the biggest curb stomp in gaming. Because
yeah, I wasn't even close.
no. And the PS2 to me, I think is an untouchable record because for a while, so the closest system to touching it is the DS, which sold 154.02 million. It's that close. Then after that is the Switch, which I thought was gonna surpass it, but the Switch has finally kind of hit its tapering off period because the Switch 2 is coming.
Yeah.
And the Switch right now kind of sits around 141 million. So
it still has time though, because I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people who are going to go and buy Switches once the Switch 2 comes out. Like people who've been waiting. When the Switch 2 comes out, I'm sure prices for OG Switch are going to go down.
it's possible. I think the thing with this is that the PS2. So the difference I see here is the fact that a lot of PS2s that were sold never played games in their entire existence.
Mm-hmm.
The Switch is strictly a gaming system.
True.
It doesn't have that same. I mean, it got damn close. I will say that. The Switch though just never had that like market power PS2 did, because there were so many, like back in the day. Like I always tell this story. Despite like the PS2 being like far and along like the biggest system, I was in a very Nintendo heavy neighborhood. And we were like the one family that actually had a PS2 as a PS2, because I would go to friends' houses and they'd have their PS2 on the shelf, and I'd always be like, "Oh, can we play some PS2?" And they'd be like, "Oh, we don't have any games. That's just our DVD player." And I'd always be like, "Great." So I'm convinced a lot of that number is for systems sold that didn't actually ever play a game in its entire existence.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which is a
Yeah,
wild.
I had a few friends. I had a few friends like that.
That's just it's a wild thing, because I don't think that'll ever happen again in like gaming, where like a console gets bought and never actually fulfills its intended purpose.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I feel like a lot of Wii's just collected dust, but that's a different thing altogether.
True, but I mean, the Wii only could play Wii games, so
yeah. Well, no, that's not true. It played GameCube games.
Well, video games, I should say.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
And Netflix. It did have Netflix, kind of. That was
Didn't you need a disc?
Yeah, not a lot of people use Netflix on the Wii.
I didn't even know that was a thing. Like that at the beginning of like Netflix streaming, you needed to get a Netflix disc.
Yeah. Those are collector's items now.
That's wild to me. Wild. With how far streaming has come in such a short amount of time.
You know what was funny about the PS2 though? Like as a DVD player?
What's that?
It was an awful DVD player. Like it really wasn't.
Oh yeah.
Good.
Well, you know what's funny is my buddy Matt, so he got a new place like I don't know, maybe like a year ago or whatever. And he hasn't had Wi-Fi the whole time, so he's just been living off of DVDs. So he's got a 360 and a PS2, and believe it or not, more of his DVDs work on the PS2 than the Xbox 360.
That's interesting. So
like he has a copy of I forget, it's either Ricky O or Black Dynamite. I don't remember. I think it's Ricky O, but Ricky O won't work on the 360. It'll only work on the PS2. Which, if you've never seen that, you should definitely check it out. It's a fucking hilarious movie.
It's kind of funny, like the overusing DVDs in a PS2 actually there's no concrete evidence to this, but I've noticed a trend where if you had a PS2 that used a lot of DVDs like back in the day, it would eventually reach a point where it would stop reading regular CDs.
Hmm.
Because I have two PS2s right now. I have the original fat model I've had forever, and then I bought a slimline a few years back. The fat one can no longer play compact discs or the blue discs. It can only play DVDs.
Huh.
And I think it's because we played a lot of DVDs in it as when we were kids.
That's so bizarre.
It's a thing that like I've seen like multiple people have this issue where it'll just stop reading the blue discs and stuff.
Mm-hmm. I've
But
only
yeah.
ever had like a couple of games that were blue discs. What is even like? I still don't understand what that was. I never
So
actually
the
looked into it.
if you look on the back of the case, I should have brought a couple as a reference, but
My
you'll
my my copy of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets was a blue disc game.
so if you look close on the back, you'll notice on most games it'll say DVD-ROM. The blue discs are actually compact discs, like the original PlayStation games.
Okay, that makes sense.
Before they really figured out that DVDs were going to be the way of the future, there was a lot of games that were made early on compact discs because it was cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so those are actually the blue discs, and you'll notice if you look on the back of the case, it'll say compact disc interactive.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that's the only difference. It's a CD rather than a DVD.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I guess I
it
never
was a
really thought about the difference.
yeah. I didn't really either until I really started like researching this stuff, and it makes a lot of sense.
I gotcha. So what? So when you got your PS2, what was the first game aside from ATV Off-Road Fury 2? Since I'm pretty sure every PS2 came with that game.
Mine did not, believe it or not,
Oh, what did yours come with?
nothing.
Oh, well then.
So early PS2s, you got jack and shit.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got
so
mine a little bit later.
it's kind of sad, but you want to know what the first game I played in my PS2 was?
Was it a PS1 game?
It was Final Fantasy VIII because I was like PS2, yay, and it's like we have no games, and I was just like, fuck it,
Good thing PS1 works.
Final Fantasy. Actually, I
Geez.
think the first thing we used it for was a DVD because I think Alex watched some Barbie movie in it.
Oh God.
Yeah, yeah. The first PS2 game I owned though was Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist of the Rose
Wow, nice.
because I
Good
got it on.
start.
It was on sale at a best. No, it was on sale at Walmart for $20. That was the only thing I could afford.
Wow, it was for $20 that early, huh?
Yeah, it was on sale pretty quick.
Yeah, that's a wild game. I figured just for the sake of not boring our listeners, we'll skip over that talking about that game and Dragon Ball games since we've already
Yeah, we've
pretty
covered
thoroughly
those
covered those.
already. I mean, we can bring up if we bring up any Dragon Ball game, I want to bring up the fact that Tenkaichi 3 is fucking almost $200. Like, I'll never
Jeez.
understand why.
Well, I mean, no offense, Bill, you're kind of a hater for that game. That game's fun as fuck.
No, I don't understand. I just don't understand why it's fucking $200. Like,
I mean, that I don't understand because I feel like there was plenty of copies to go around. So I don't understand why. I mean, maybe it was because it was towards the end of the PS2's life cycle, but I don't know. I still don't get it.
I'm convinced that's a game that you had to have been there to enjoy because me and Schnickerman played that at Retro World and we were so fucking confused the entire time.
Oh well, I was definitely there. I don't think I think it was a little bit after it had originally come out that I bought it and played it, but it was like PS3 had only just been out for like a year or two at the point where I played it. So at least to my memory, I could be getting my years mixed up. I'm bad at tracking time. But I mean, it was still pretty early on. It was still at a point where I was pretty consistently still playing the PS2. So, that GameStop still had a shit ton of PS2 games. So that's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
I still wish I had utilized that because there was a lot of good PS2 games that were very cheap at GameStop at the time. And I really wish I had taken advantage.
When you come up here, like eventually come to visit, I'll take you to one of the retro stores because they have PS2 games galore.
No, well, unfortunately, I'd have to get a new PS2 because mine shit the bed. Doesn't read games anymore. Yeah, unfortunately, I tried setting it up in Xander's room a few months ago, and it wouldn't read anything. Which I was super bummed about because I don't know, it's just one of those things like I don't feel right unless I have a PS2, like that I could just fucking plug in and jump into something. Because I have so many games from my childhood, like well, we won't go into detail, obviously, for obvious reasons, but my first PS2 game was the first Budokai, which I played religiously until the second one came out, at least.
Still a classic, even though it's janky as fuck.
Mm-hmm. I was still champion the second one over all the others, but it's a story for another day. But yeah, aside from that, trying to think what one of the other early ones I had. It was Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2. I remember playing that one a lot.
Great racer. I played a lot of Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Cortex, which was at the time I didn't think of it any differently, but it was notably the first Crash game not made by Naughty Dog, the original creators. I don't think it's a bad game like a lot of people do, but it is definitely, you can tell that there was a drop in quality.
Yeah. I didn't play any of the PS2 Crash games. I don't even know how many there were. I did play one or two of the Spyro ones though, and I know a lot of people talk shit about the PS2 ones, but I enjoyed my time with them. I didn't think they were particularly bad.
The originals. The only one that gets really shit on is Enter the Dragonfly, but that's because it's a glitchy mess.
That's fair. I mean, to be fair, there was a lot of games in the PS2 that were glitchy messes.
Yeah, I mean, Hero's Tale, the second Spyro game, is it at worst it's considered unremarkable, but most people think it's fine. And then there's the Legend of Spyro games, but that's like an entirely different series.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I figured we could just kind of take it in turns and just talk about, each talk about a different game, go back and forth.
Sure. You want to start? Or?
I guess I'll start. The first one I want to bring up is a game that I put a ton of time into, is a Gun. I feel like everybody had this game. Like, this is like, I can't say for certain. I don't even know who made it.
The Tony Hawk team.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
One of the rare times Activision let them out of their cage to make something else.
But I feel like this game in a lot of ways was like the precursor to what became Red Dead. Like I feel like the guys who made Red Dead played Gun and were like this, but bigger.
So Red Dead also started on PS2 with Red Dead Revolver. Did you know that Capcom originally had the rights to that and they dropped it because they didn't think it would do well?
Really?
Yeah. And then Rockstar picked it up, and the rest is history.
I had no idea that Revolver was the first one, because I could be mistaken. Wasn't there a Red Dead Revolver for the PSP?
No. There's a Gun for PSP.
Really?
Yeah, it's I don't know if I haven't actually played it. I own it. It's like, I don't know if it's a port or it's an original game, but there's a Gun on PSP.
I'll have to look into that. But yeah, Gun was just an insanely fun game. Like it was big enough to be able to explore, but it wasn't so big that it was overwhelming or extremely time consuming. It's like, I was actually talking to my father-in-law about it earlier, but it's one of those games that like there's enough to do, like, to feel like a big game, but you could still beat it in a reasonable amount of time, like complete 100%, like you've maxed out everything, you've done all the quests. Like,
Mm.
And like some of the missions can be pretty hard, but it's not like, throw your controller against the wall hard either. So I don't know, it's just one of those like really perfect right down the middle. You're not going to have a shitty time. It's also not going to be outrageously easy. You're just, it's going to be a fun game. It's going to be just the right amount of challenge. There's all sorts of fun things you could do. You could go into the saloon and play poker for a while, win some money. You could go and hunt down criminals. And the fun thing about that was some of them you were dead or alive. Some of them you had to catch alive. Some of them you just had to kill. It depended on the guy. Like there were all sorts of different like mini games and different stuff like that. And the story itself was really good too. I really enjoyed that.
It was solid. It's funny because like that game is pretty iconic and it's very well made. Like that's my favorite part about it. Like it doesn't feel broken at all or rushed.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just unfortunately had the unfortunate. It unfortunately was made by a developer who was ball and chained to making skateboarding games, so a sequel never really happened.
Yeah, which was a super bummer.
Skateboarding games, and then they were proceeded to be ball and chain to make nothing but Guitar Hero for the rest of yeah. But that game is very well done, and it's really we kind of tangentially mentioned it, but I figured it'd be good to transfer from here. We mentioned Red Dead Revolver. Rockstar games during this era were on like a fucking another level.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'd forget nowadays that Rockstar makes games because they've only made one game in like the last decade, but and worked on a game from 2003 in the meantime since then. But I mean, 2013. But yeah, Rockstar was like on top of the world during the PS2 era. Like you had obviously the Grand Theft Auto games, like 3 of them, plus 2 PSP games that were ported over. You had Red Dead Revolver. You had the Midnight Club series, 3 Midnight Clubs. There was Smuggler's Run.
That was one I remember playing a lot as a kid. That was a very fun game.
Bully. Bully was another one.
Beat that for the first time in this past year.
Bully was really good. The Warriors game based off of the film. That's a really underrated gem. They were on like a back when like Rockstar really cared.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I just feel like I feel like people were a lot more committed to making like cohesive and fun games back then. Now it's just all about graphics and who can make the prettiest game. Like,
well, they also finished their games back in the day. Like nowadays, they rush them out and they're just
That's another reason why I consider that era to be like the golden age, is because you put the game in and then you play the game. There's no downloading. There's no, you need to have this many fucking gigabytes to play this. No, you just plug it in, you stick in your memory card, and you go. That's it.
Memory cards too. Like that's a forgotten art. I mean, I guess SD cards kind of are the same thing, but
external hard drives too. I mean, it's just a bulkier version of it, but it's essentially the same thing.
See, they lose the charm though, because like to me, like my favorite part about PS2 was you plug in a memory card and there'd be all the little unique graphics for like every save game.
Yep.
It's just something fun that they like. GameCube kind of had something similar. It wasn't nearly as entertaining, but it was also fun. Xbox had a hard drive, so it wasn't that fun. But yeah, PS2, like they made little 3D models for every game, and it was always like you'd save a game and then you'd go to the memory card to see what the icon was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun time.
So, I'm sorry, you named a bunch of games. Were you mentioning one in particular for your turn, or?
No, I kind of just transitioned there into Rockstar. If I'm gonna pick if I'm gonna pick an actual game, game I want to bring up, one of my favorites on the system, Ape Escape 3, or the Ape Escape series in general.
Yeah, well, you've been toting Ape Escape for a while now on GNC.
I'm one of the champions of that series. Like I will take any moment I can to bring it up because it is amazing. Like so, Ape Escape for people who don't know is Ape Escape is like it's made by Sony's former Japan in-house studio. They closed it down recently, but it was made as like a tech demo for the original game was it was designed to be kind of a tech demo for the DualShock controller, and the entire game was based around having two analog sticks. Like you actually use the analog sticks for most of the gameplay, which was really cool.
Okay.
And the entire game is essentially based around it's a platformer where you go through all these levels, and it's kind of like Mario 64, only rather than collecting stars, you have to capture monkeys.
Okay.
And the monkeys will fight back. Sometimes they have machine guns, sometimes they have boxing gloves. Some of them have fucking RPGs and rocket launchers. It is the most Japanese game you'll ever play. It's wacky as fuck, and they are just
God.
incredibly fun. Ape Escape 3 is fun too because it's like movie based, so like all the levels are like movie parodies.
That's funny as fuck.
Oh
Games
yeah,
were that's the other thing is like games were so wacky and goofy back then. Like I feel like that's just not a thing anymore. Like people just don't go buck wild with it anymore. Like when I was playing Bully earlier this year, like that was just such a fun like they just go wild with like the goofy jokes and everything. Like I don't know. I just feel like they don't do that anymore.
see they do. It's just not as prevalent anymore. Like I mean, like I'm a huge supporter of the Yakuza series Sega puts out nowadays because those games are straight up comedies. I don't care what anyone says. Um,
Mhm.
but they're so few and far between, like games that are just like downright funny like that nowadays.
Yeah, that's a game series that I haven't touched yet, but especially over the past like few months, I just hear people talk about and like build up so much that I just at some point I'm gonna have to crack down and play one of them, but
If you're gonna play
not
any
yet.
play, I'd say if you're gonna play any, play Zero. Zero is the
Zero.
best place to start. It's a prequel to the first game, so it is actually chronologically the first game in the series.
Mhm.
Um, and if you like that one, you can jump into Yakuza Kiwami, which is a remake of one, and then
Okay.
they remade two as Kiwami two. The only downside is once you get to three, you go kind of go back in a time machine because three is very much a PS3 game.
Okay.
But a great series. I fucking love Yakuza.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about it. So I mean, at some point I'll have to jump in there, but I got so many on the docket right now that it's just not feasible.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Um,
um,
but yeah, Ape Escape, great game.
Good. Um, for me, a game. Well, I guess I'll just say one and two for this one. But I put a crap ton of time into the Destroy Humans games.
Those are fun
It was
games.
like talk about like goofy humor, like the kind of story they went with. Like you are the villain in this story, and you just going right, you probing everybody. You could you know mind control people. You could abduct people. You could literally just pick people up with your mind and just toss them for like a mile. Like it's just so many goofy. Like that was one of the games that like yes, I did play through the stories, but I had the most fun with those games just fucking around. Like just running around. I just pick up a car with telekinesis and throw it at another car, watch the bolt explode. Like whatever. It's just a fun ass game.
I just love the nonsense that happens in those games. Like the fact that the humans never seem to catch on to the fact that there's fucking aliens.
And the alien in the mothership is just Invader Zim.
Yeah, it's Richard Horvitz. It's very
Yeah, it's
clear.
just fucking Invader Zim.
And I love how your player character Crypto is he just doesn't give a flying fuck about anything.
Yeah, he's just like a dude. He's just a regular ass fucking dude, but from space, and he
Yeah.
just running around probing people and eating brains or whatever. And
He can't even be bothered. He's like, fine, I'll go fucking mess with the humans, I guess.
and this game was so iconic that like the design for Crypto and like his ship and everything has been used for so many other things. Like, have you ever seen the movie Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's literally just Crypto, and the ship he leaves in is just Crypto's ship.
I mean, it's like the most common, like it's like a refined version of the stereotypical alien look, but it works so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so silly. I actually started playing Destroy Humans 2 remake with Xander not that long ago, and God, like the goofy shit, like what in the second one where they just really going crazy with like the peace movement
Yeah.
stuff, and that's just what was the guy's name? It was like something Bongwater was the dude's name that you were like getting information from. It's like it's not subtle at all. It's not a very subtle
No,
game.
no, it wasn't at all. I'm so bummed that the sequels ended up sucking so hard. Like after Pandemic stopped making them.
Yeah. Like the second one was really good. I didn't play any of the ones after
Well,
the
yeah,
second one,
two was
but
good. The one on Wii, Big Willie Unleashed, was meh. And then Path of the Furon on PS3 and 360 was just bad.
that's disappointing. But it at least makes me happy that I never even bothered with them. I have nothing but good memories about those games. It's just so much fun.
Hmm. Now, Pandemic made really great things, and honestly, we bring up Pandemic, we should honestly transition over to the Star Wars Battlefront games.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that one would have come up anyway.
Yeah, I
Might as
figure
well do it now.
we're talking Pandemic. We should talk about the other two games that made them famous: Battlefront 1 and 2.
Mhm.
I'm not even a massive Star Wars guy anymore these days, but Battlefront 1 and 2 are just such great games.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had my Star Wars phases. I mean, I still like Star Wars. Don't get me wrong, but I was definitely way bigger into Star Wars when I was a kid, and yeah,
I blame
Battlefront 2 specifically. I didn't play the first one, but 2 I put so much time into, and I've played just about every version of it at this point, except for like the PC version.
I had it on PSP for the longest time, and that was interesting because it was basically the same game, just missing some content.
I still have it on PSP. I think it's like pretty much just the PS2 version,
It
but
is
like
PS2, but it's
more
missing.
simple, more simplified.
Yeah, it's missing a few maps too because of space limitations.
Yeah, well, the Xbox version was the best one that had all the maps.
The cantina level is just like you just go to the
Mhm.
cantina and battle royale, essentially heroes versus villains.
Yeah, heroes and villains. That's the best way to play. And it's funny too because when I was a kid, like I generally tended to favor like being like a Jedi or a Sith or one of the villains with a lightsaber. But now whenever I play it, I just want to be like the regular ass troopers or the droids or whatever. Like I have so much fun just running around and sniping people on Hoth or
Or
um
you can or you can
you
be a
know
cheat you can be a cheating asshole and play as Yoda,
yeah, no kidding.
like a little tiny bastard. You can't catch him.
Yeah, I might as well play as Odd Job while you're at
Yeah, golden eye flashbacks.
it. But yeah, I don't know. I had so much time with so much fun with the Battlefront games, and
I love the space
I
battles.
oh yeah, I especially like I don't know. I was really I had a lot of fun with the space battles when I used to play on PSP.
Mm.
Because of like the simplified version of it, it was a lot easier to shoot down other ships in the PSP version. So I had a lot of fun doing that.
Mm.
Yeah, the space battle, like having the space battles be a part of the game was really, really interesting and like I don't know what the right word is, like innovative for the time.
Well, I was
Like being
always
able to
bummed.
switch between like ground troops and having space battles at the same time. Like,
Well, I was always kind of bummed because like the PS2 didn't get the Rogue Squadron games, which were like the flight ones over on GameCube. And those
mhm.
games are so freaking good. And I was always bummed like that we never got those. So it was kind of cool we kind of got space battles with Battlefront 2, even though if they weren't exactly as awesome as Rogue Squadron, but
Yeah, that was fair. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Battlefront 2 is fantastic. I can't speak for the first one because I haven't played it, but
it had
I've
better
heard
map.
plenty of good things.
It had better maps, but I think 2 had better gameplay overall.
And while I haven't played it pretty much since it came out, I am really happy that it was re-released for Switch. Ironically, that's like the biggest game I have on my Switch.
Oh, size-wise?
Yeah, so like for like the amount of gigabytes it takes up, Battlefront 1 and 2 is like either the first or second biggest game on my Switch, which is wild to me.
I think that's more poor optimization than anything, but
Probably.
because there's RPGs that are smaller than it, and I'm just like, how? Like, I just sit here going, like, how did they?
Yeah, Persona 4 Golden, significantly smaller.
Yeah, that's just poor optimization. What's your next game?
Let's see. One of the games I played a little was the first. Well, no, not this. The second to a lot. Those were actually really good. And honestly, I have big inspirations for what becoming Hogwarts Legacy, which I haven't played much of personally, but I play a bunch of it. So it's a lot of like that kind of like exploration to it. Like, you know, you're at Hogwarts. It's through the story of like the books. But you know, there's a lot of added aspects to it, like classes, you're learning different spells, like little spell, you go into the classroom and they're kind of like, oh, your passenger say, okay, go in here with this new spell and solve the puzzles, you know. So there's a lot of like, honestly, you know what, it reminded me a lot of like the shrines in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
where you go into like a little dungeon and you have to solve a puzzle with the new spell you get.
Yeah, the only Harry Potter game I really had any experience with during that era was the Chamber of Secrets game on PS2.
Yeah, that's one of the ones I played a lot. I loved Chamber of Secrets and Prisoner of Azkaban, both very good games. Games that I really wish would get remakes or re-release. Honestly, I'd be happy with just a straight up port. Like, you don't have to do anything to it. Just give me a port on Switch and I'd be happy.
It's probably licensing, honestly.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I don't know. Hogwarts Legacy, they were able to do that. So, I mean, obviously that company has the rights to the games.
The problem is the studio that made the games, I believe, is Eurocom, and they no longer exist. So
it's just in the ether.
Probably. Like, who published those? Wasn't it EA?
Yeah, it was EA Games.
Yeah, that's probably what's holding it up. EA probably like just doesn't care, and they're just like, yeah.
You know what's weird though? And it always bugged me when I play. Have you played it all the way through, like beaten Chamber Secrets?
It's been years, but I did a long time ago.
Do you remember the part where you're fighting the basilisk at the end, and you have the sword of Gryffindor, but you're literally waving it like a wand? You're not using it as a sword at all.
Yeah,
that bothered the fuck out of me.
I was like, what's the point? I was like, what's the
deal? Yeah, why am I even using a sword at this point? I'm still using spells.
Yeah, I was never a massive Harry Potter fan. I don't know why I had that game, but it was probably a gift. Now that I think about it.
I mean, it's a solid game. It's really fun.
Yeah, it's well made. It's just one of those worlds I don't have any interest in, but that's a personal thing more than anything.
That's understandable. Ironically, I feel like, no, not to sidetrack too much, but I feel like you tend to like fantasy games, but like when it comes to like fantasy like books and movies and shows and stuff, like you don't generally tend to like those. Just from what I've gathered personally.
It might just be I'm not a huge fan of European like fantasy.
That makes sense.
Because I like Japanese fantasy, but that's a very different thing.
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just never been one of the things I've been into. But I think I was just into other things at the time. They were big.
Makes sense. I mean, you definitely seem more like a sci-fi guy anyway.
Sci-fi. Yeah, to a degree, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's my pick that time is Harry Potter.
Yeah, the Harry Potter games were good. I guess going back to some more early games that were pretty iconic on the system, we should talk about. So Sony had the big three early on of platformers with the Jack and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, and Sly Cooper.
Mhm.
Um, I I like all three of them, but I am a huge fan of the Sly Cooper trilogy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like so that was made by Sucker Punch Productions, and like Sucker Punch is like one of my favorite developers who have never made a bad game, so that's already a plus. But
Mhm.
also, they just make really solid stuff. Like the Sly games are cool, particularly Sly Two, where it's like it's a really good platformer, but they're also like stealth based and like mission based. So you get like all these different stealth things. Like you have to like sneak around the giant hub worlds to get to the different mission points and stuff. The stories are just fun. The characters are really witty.
Mhm.
They're just fun. They're very fun series. They're comic book inspired too, so they have kind of like this very stylized art style.
That's cool. Yeah, out of those three, the only one that I really dipped my toes into was the Jack and Daxter series, and as a kid at least, I only played Jack 3, um, which was definitely confusing jumping into that.
Yeah, especially because Jack and Daxter had the most in depth story out of the three of them. Um,
Yeah, just jumping in and being like, what was it like? He was just getting released from like jail or something, and just kind of got thrown in the desert. Like it was a really weird beginning to a game. I was very confused.
well, ironically, two starts with you getting out of prison as well.
That's that's the only one I haven't played any of. So
It's
that's
also,
pretty funny.
I mean, Jack and Daxter is an interesting series because the first one was just a straight up Mario 64 clone, a really good
Mhm.
Mario 64 clone, but it was very simple. And everyone complained that it was too easy. So then Naughty Dog decided to make Jack 2 hard as fuck for no reason.
Mhm.
Um, and darker and a lot edgier. It's still a good game, but it is very much a 2000s game. And then 3 was kind of like the best of both worlds, where it was like not super hard, but it was still kind of darker.
Yeah.
Ratchet and Clank, though, was probably the most successful out of those three because it's still going to this day.
I mean, to a degree. I mean, we had that one game a couple years ago.
I mean, Rift
Yeah,
Apart,
I
that was
haven't
a
heard
good.
anything since.
Well, they're busy making Marvel games right now.
That's fair.
I'm sure they'll make another one at some point.
Well, I mean, after the movie and everything, it'd be pretty stupid of them not to.
Well, yeah, I mean, Ratchet's been consistently getting games. The last time Sly got a game was 2012, 11, I think,
Mhm.
on the PS3. And then Jack hasn't got a game since 2009.
Wow.
And that game he got in 2009 wasn't very good. So
Was it the racing game or the PSP game?
the PSP Lost Frontier game,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Wait,
it
so
wasn't.
was there more than one PSP game then? Because I know
Well,
there
there
was
was
one that was just Daxter.
yeah, there was Daxter, and then there was the Lost Frontier, which was also released on PS2.
Okay,
Um,
gotcha.
yeah, that one's not very good at all. But Daxter's a fun little game.
Mhm. Um, so yeah, next, another game that I played a lot of, both single player and multiplayer, is 007 Nightfire.
Nightfire.
That's another game that I really wish would be re-released.
I will die on this hill that Nightfire and not a PS2 game, or well, not even from this generation, but The World Is Not Enough on N64 are better than GoldenEye. I will die on that hill.
I mean, if we're being totally honest here, for the world to hear, GoldenEye is kind of horrible.
I mean,
I
I
mean,
like Gold.
it's not. I like GoldenEye, and it definitely set the stage for what FPSs were to become.
On
But
consoles,
by
anyways. Yeah,
today's standards, it's a terrible game.
I'm in the minority who actually prefers the single player over the multiplayer
For GoldenEye, or
For GoldenEye, yeah. GoldenEye had a
Okay.
great single player campaign that no one played because everyone was playing the multiplayer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Which
don't get
is
me wrong. I'm very fond of GoldenEye, but that doesn't make it a good game. There's plenty of other games that aren't good games that I like too. So it doesn't mean much.
now the world is not enough on N64 and Nightfire especially are just fucking great fucking FPS games.
Yeah, if we could just get like it doesn't even need like a full on like remake treatment or anything like that. Just give it a little bit of polish. Nightfire would be perfect. It
See,
just make it a little bit less like a PS2 game, if that makes sense.
unfortunately, ironically enough, this is another case of licensing where this was also a game made by Eurocom, who don't exist anymore, and it was published by
Wonderful.
EA.
Jesus.
And the 007 license is currently being held by AO Interactive, the Hitman team. So,
Fair enough.
I mean, I'm
But no,
looking forward to the new James
Hmm?
Bond game that it. So AO is making I think it's AO, the Hitman studio. They're making the next James Bond game, and I am looking super excited for that because they are a quality studio.
Well, if there's gonna be a new James Bond game, I'm definitely up for it because I've enjoyed everyone I've played, and like I say, Nightfire, like because I played the story mode and I enjoyed the story mode immensely. And if I could even begin to quantify how many hours I put into multiplayer playing with friends and family and whomever else, even up to like just a few years ago, playing like using a multi tap on a PS2 at a friend's house that we could play 4-player Nightfire with all the bots and everything, like the like cabin levels. It was like the one level with the cabins, and God, I think there was one with there was like a pit. It was like a big room, a big circular room with a pit in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just God. I loved that game so much, and that's one of those games that like once I get a PS2 again, because I will eventually. Um, that's one of those games that I'm definitely gonna prioritize replaying for sure.
Nightfire is great. Another 007 game that I fucking love is From Russia with Love. That's the one that they actually got Conroy back to do play James Bond.
Oh yeah.
It's like a third person shooter. It's not amazing, but it is just the style because it's based off of Sean Connery, like James
Mhm.
Bond, and they got Connery to do the voice. It is just a fun little nostalgia game.
I gotcha.
I think it was actually made by EA Redwood Shores, who are better known as Visceral Games. Unfortunately, another dead studio, but
Mhm.
yeah, they made good stuff. Um, Speaking of games like that, I'm trying to transfer on. I can't think of a good segue. Uh, were you a big racing game guy, or not really?
I played around with them. It depended on like who I was hanging out with or what. Like I didn't generally play racing games on my own unless it was like Mario Kart on like DS or something. But aside from
Okay.
that, like it was pretty much like if I was hanging out with people and we had a racing game, we'd play a racing game.
I feel like we should. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Gran Turismo 3 and 4.
I feel like I dipped my toes in those games a little bit, but I was definitely more of a Need for Speed kid.
More into the arcade style racers, not the simulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gran Turismo 2 and 3 and 4 for me, like I prefer arcade racers personally, but I do enjoy a good sim every now and then. And
Mhm.
like Gran Turismo has always been like a favorite of mine. Like there's just something funny about there's just something fun about a realistic game where you have to actually like design your car and like tune it to perfection to actually race, and you actually have to earn the money to buy better cars. It's just one of those fun series that it takes a very you have to be in the right mindset to truly enjoy, but when you get really into them, they're so fun.
Mhm.
Especially in 4 where you can unlock the DeLorean.
Really?
Yeah, there's a DeLorean in there that you can unlock.
That's awesome.
No, you can't go back to the future, but
Yeah, well, whatever. Um, that's cool though. I don't know. Like it's always good to have a racing game on hand, especially if you're gonna have people over and you're gonna hang out and play games and stuff. Like, Xander's been commandeering my copy of Mario Kart for the Switch, so I haven't been able to play that whenever I get the hankering. But which unfortunately is why I wasn't able to join you guys when you guys were doing all the Mario Kart games and stuff. But because he tends to take it with him.
Yeah.
But oh well. Let's see. Well, since you mentioned it, I know it wasn't technically a PlayStation exclusive, but Hitman Blood Money. That's was one of my favorite games to play on PlayStation. It's another game I played a lot. Actually, I think the last time we hung out in person, I was playing that game, wasn't I?
I don't think it was in person because I think you were still in the trailer at that point.
No, because I was playing on an Xbox at the time, but I'm fairly certain because I feel like I was playing Hitman and you were playing Final Fantasy on your Vita.
I might have been. I can't remember honestly, but I do remember.
It's been a bit. It's been a bit.
I don't know if it was the last time we hung out or not, but I do remember that. Yeah, those games are fun. They're just very. You have to be in the right mindset to play Hitman.
Yeah, I mean it's also a very it's a sandboxy kind of game. Like you jump in and you have all these things at your disposal that you can do whatever with. And well, I have played the newer Hitman, the first of the new Hitmans, I should say. I feel like those sandboxes, so to speak, are a little bit too big. I feel like the ones that we had in Hitman, like Blood Money, was like just the right size. Like some of them were on the smaller side, some of them were bigger, but like you could. It was that perfect middle ground where you could kind of do whatever you wanted to do. Like you could do the stealth route, or you could just go in guns blazing and kill everybody. And depending on what difficulty, you were playing on, obviously, you'd have mixed results. But
yeah,
just having that kind of freedom of gameplay and being able to just kind of play the way you want was very appealing. I definitely enjoyed that game a lot growing up.
That was a game that I think as a kid I would be more frustrated by, but as an adult you get it more. So kind of jumping around now, a genre we haven't really covered much is the fighting game genre. The Mortal Kombat games on PS2 in particular were really good, like Deadly Alliance, Deception, Armageddon, Shaolin Monks. Did you ever play any of those?
Unfortunately, I did not. I pretty much the first Mortal Kombat I played was on PS1.
Okay.
And then I didn't play another one until they rebooted it for the 360.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I missed that whole chunk of Mortal Kombat.
Okay. Yeah, the PS2 era was interesting because they were like full 3D, like they had gone into that like 3D style fighting territory for a while now. The stories were just wacky. Like there was like this whole conquest mode that you could do. There was also chess combat, which was hilarious, where it was like you like chess and fight. And the brutality and just violence of the games was just so like over the top at the time. Like I always think of like Johnny Cage just fucking obliterating people's fucking junk.
That's kind of his go-to move, isn't it?
Yeah, they just got more and more over the top with it as they went on. Yeah, I love those games though, particularly Deadly Alliance and Deception in particular were two of my favorites. Shaolin Monks too, because that one wasn't really a fighting game. That was more of like a side-scrolling beat 'em up, but it was just a really good side-scrolling beat 'em up.
Yeah, that's cool. Mortal Kombat's always good. No matter doesn't matter what platform you're playing it on or whatever. It's always a good time.
Yeah, like I prefer Tekken personally. Like that's my fighting game of choice, but Mortal Kombat's probably my other go-to.
I played a little bit of Tekken back in the day. Although I remember watching the Tekken animated movie back in the day. That was an
Interesting.
experience. It's been a
Yep.
long time, but I remember watching it, and that was bizarre.
You ever watch the Street Fighter anime movie?
I don't think so.
It is also an experience.
Hmm. Yeah, I see. A
Yep.
Street Fighter, I never really got into. I played because Street Fighter is Capcom, correct?
Yes.
So, so I played a little bit of like Marvel vs. Capcom. So I guess I played that aspect of Street Fighter. But aside from that, and playing a little bit in the arcade, that's pretty much my extent for Street Fighter.
Street Fighter is one of those series that's kind of like you had to have been there, I feel like, to really truly enjoy it. The PS2 era wasn't the kindest to Street Fighter because there wasn't a lot of. I think the only original Street Fighter on PS2 was Street Fighter EX3, which was the 3D one.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that game's fine, but yeah, Street Fighter, like, to me, if I think like me and Thrak had said it on 3DO when we covered the 3DO port of Street Fighter 2. It is it is a great game, but it's just one of those games that you either like it or you don't like it. It's not like a very easy to decipher kind of series.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha.
Yeah, I found like Tekken or like Mortal Kombat or like Soul Calibur just much easier to get into.
Makes sense. So let's see. Well, jumping back to Star Wars for a minute, the start of it all, really, for like this whole series of this whole genre of games, really, is Lego Star Wars.
Lego Star Wars, the original, the video game, that was an I forget just how old that game is. That came out in 2004, I want to say.
Hmm. Yeah, it was a bit ago for sure.
It was right after episode 3 came out because I remember the game came out before 3 came out physically.
Mm-hmm.
So like it was just one of those it was a weird timing. It was interesting that they did the sequels. Well, no, they did the prequel trilogy before they did the original trilogy. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, because the prequels was Lego Star Wars 1, and then Lego Star Wars 2 was the original trilogy, and then they did like a completed version that had both games essentially
Yes,
combined into one.
the definitive game is the complete saga, which was episodes 1 through 6.
Which is now no longer a valid title.
I mean, you don't have to. Everything after doesn't really matter. I mean,
True. But no, like Lego Star Wars was one of those games that just like it was just endless amounts of fun. Like it was definitely a lot more linear than Lego games have become since.
I'm fine with that because
Me too, honestly. I like that. Like, we've discussed this before. While the Skywalker Saga Lego game is, I mean, objectively, it's a good game. It's just a solid adventure game to play.
I'll hold my
But
tongue
if
because
you're
I did not have fun playing that at all.
see, that's the thing is we have you and I being of the generation we're in have a very distinct idea of what a Lego game should be, and that is not what this new one was. This new generation is going to look at this game and say, "This is the most fantastic Lego game I've ever seen in my life," and that's what they're going to take forward with them. While I don't
See,
personally agree with that, I'm with you on that, but I can also look at it and say, "This is a well-made game. I understand why this is what it is."
see, to me, what highlights the Skywalker saga like perfectly is when me and you were playing it. That time I came down to visit, it was me, you, and Cindy sitting on the couch, and we got stuck in Genosis, and we were there for half an hour. And I know by the like after a while, we all three of us started falling asleep. That's how bored
Yep.
we were. Like the next thing I know, Cindy's completely out. You're nodding off. I'm nodding off, and we're still on that goddamn conveyor belt. I was like, what
Yeah.
is this?
Yeah, I'll give that to you. It's a little ridiculous with it that, but and also like I don't know. It's just when you're there at the beginning of the life cycle of Lego games and you see where Lego games have gone, like you understand why they went in the direction that they've gone, but it doesn't mean you have to like it.
See, I don't know if I'm in the minority here, but to me, I think the biggest mistake that franchise made was making the characters talk.
Agreed. For 100%. 100%. The
I
physical
love,
comedy of those games was one of the biggest draws for me.
like, I adore the pantomiming and like just like the part where like in episode 1 where like the ship gets destroyed when they land on the Federation ship for the meeting, and the two Lego the pilots will look at each other and then just fall and just die, and it's like what?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
stuff like that, or even not even just Lego Star Wars, but like the first Lego Batman had so much visual and like it had so much like physical humor that was just something that like you don't get with voice acting.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you there. That was definitely one of the big draws. And just like I don't know, it just Lego games had a charm then that they just don't seem to have anymore. That's why I just not super in like Xander plays what's it the like the Lego Marvel universe or whatever it is. It's not like Avengers, but it's like this big conglomeration of all things Marvel. I don't even remember what the hell it's called, but like there's like full voice acting in that, and it doesn't feel right to me. Like I understand why kids nowadays like these newer Lego games because if I was a kid right now, I'd probably love them too. But there's just that I feel a separation between our generation and their generation where we have a very specific idea of what a Lego game should be, and they are more open to the new than we are.
Yeah, like the last one that I played before I just lost interest was Lego Pirates of the Caribbean.
Mhm.
And they still weren't talking by that point, but that was around the point where they started changing how multiplayer worked, where you could actually like separate on screen.
That like I while I understand because it was super annoying playing two player and like having to stay together because the screen wouldn't move if you weren't moving in the same direction.
Hmm.
But the way that they chose to deal with that is just god awful.
Oh,
If I'm being totally honest.
Pirates of the Caribbean was horrendous because not only did the screen cut in half when you got separated, but it
It
also
rotates.
like yeah, it did this wavy shit. And I was like, could we
Yeah,
not? I'm like, please.
they still do that. It still does that.
It's
It's
ugh.
wild.
I'd rather
It
just
just
drag
it makes me
I'd rather
dizzy.
I'd rather drag player 2 along with me.
Agreed. 100%.
I
100%.
will say Lego
See,
Star Wars, like the first two and the complete saga, some of the most entertaining speed runs you'll ever look up.
oh, I'm sure. I see. I don't look up a whole lot of speed runs. Um,
I don't really
I don't know
either. I
why. I
just
guess I just don't. I don't really like watch a whole lot of gameplay videos unless it's like for a game that's yet to come out, and I just want to see what the gameplay is like. But aside from that, I don't really fuck with that.
so I don't really watch speed runs themselves. I watch a lot of like I'm a big fan of there's a YouTube channel called Summoning Salt, and he does like documentaries on the history of speed runs for certain games, and he did a whole history of the speed running for Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga, and like
Mhm.
it was it's mental some of the shit that the runners do for those games.
That's kind of fun. That was actually another thing about the complete saga version, at least, is that you could make your own Lego character, and that was
You
really fun.
you could do that in the original trilogy as well. I think that's what the game that introduced it.
Really? Oh, the
Yeah,
like Lego Star Wars 2?
yeah, and two.
Okay. Yeah,
I
'cause I was
believe
gonna
that.
say I didn't think there was a thing in the original Lego Star Wars.
No, not the first. The original Lego Star Wars is very bare bones in hindsight.
But at the same time, it was just so much fun. Like I don't know why. It was just like and you get through, you get through the game, you get all the collectibles, you get all the red bricks and all that other shit, and then you just restart and do it all over again. It was so much fun. So
Yeah,
much
and
fun.
you'd unlock the mystery door, which was episode 4, except it was only like one episode, one
Yeah, it
little
was
part
like
of it,
one chapter of it.
which was fun. I enjoyed that. My favorite part about the video on the speed runnings though was like it was like the reason why speedrunning for Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga is so entertaining is because these games are broken as fuck, and I was like, yeah, they are. They're not well
Mhm.
programmed, but that's kind of why we like them.
For sure. For sure.
Because you can do a lot of shit that you're not supposed to do because they're those games are made on the cheap and they just pump them out to make money and it works and I appreciate I respect it.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
it's
I'll never talk smack about it. So
they're broken but they're playable, so that's all that matters.
hmm, for sure.
Um, so yeah, Lego Star Wars was a big one. I'm trying to think of another iconic game and on. So we're talking licensed games because PS2 era was like to me like the last true era of great licensed games.
Oh yeah, there's
Um,
so many, so many.
Another one that I have to bring up is Simpsons Hidden Run.
Oh, phew. Don't even get me started on that. That's another one I would love it if they ported. God, I would place that game so much if they put it out again.
Yeah, that's another licensing kind of snafu because I don't know who owns the Simpsons license at this point, but
Disney,
yeah,
wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be Disney?
well Disney owns the rights to the Simpsons, but I don't know who owns the game rights
Hmm.
because Disney doesn't have a game studio anymore.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Hidden Run is just like it's just Grand Theft Auto, but it's fun.
Yeah, but with Simpsons characters.
And it's just a fun game. Like the story is goofy. Like there's so many references to The Simpsons.
See, I never
Especially
played the story. I just fucked it. I pretty much traded that game like a Grand Theft Auto game, as I would have played it back then, and just fucked around.
well, you had to play the story to get to other parts of the map. But
Yeah, well, I guess I just had a completed file. I must have stole it from somebody, or I
maybe
was just playing it, or I was playing at somebody else's house. I don't remember. I just know that I played it a lot as a kid.
Mm. No, it was just a fun game exploring around Springfield and just doing all sorts of wacky shit.
Hmm. Which is
Eating,
funny too, because like even though as much as I played that game as a kid and enjoyed the hell out of it, um, I don't remember watching a whole lot of Simpsons when I was at that age.
see when that game came out, that was right around the point where I had first discovered The Simpsons, and I was really watching like the golden age of The Simpsons, like seasons 3 through 8. So I think that game came out at the perfect time for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I played the hell out of that back in the day.
No, I believe it. I mean, it's such an enjoyable game. Like like that particular kind of game. Like when you look at Simpsons Hit and Run or South Park: The Stick of Truth, or you know, like those kinds of games where they just kind of take a pre-established world and just kind of say, "Go adventure, go enjoy, go discover." Like those are fantastic.
Hmm. Yeah, that one was really fun. Another licensed game too that is incredibly iconic was SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom.
Yeah, I know I played that. I definitely have played it. I don't remember a ton about it. I do have the rehydrated remake game, whatever. Well, technically I bought it for Xander, but I intend to play it soon.
Hmm.
It's one of those games that I just see. I have so many games on my to play list that it's just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. No, I know.
and
I hear you.
I don't even have like anywhere near the amount of games as like all y'all collectors have. Like I kind of just have what I happen to have picked up over the years. I don't have a collection, so to speak. It's just kind of what I have. And even
Yeah.
just with that alone, I have so many games that I need to play.
No, it's understandable.
But
Um. So, what's another
I
game?
figure, yeah, I figure you want to hit like one more each, and then we'll close it out.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been avoiding RPGs. I feel like that's a whole. We can honestly do a part 2 of this at some point.
Oh, easily for sure. The thing is though is I didn't really play RPGs on the PS2.
Fair.
Um, I, I mean, at least not like what we would consider RPG. Like I didn't play like Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy or anything like that until very recently.
Hmm.
Um, and I can't even think of any others that would be aside from like Persona. But obviously, considering
Yeah,
I'm on my first run right now, I didn't play it back then. That's for sure.
gotcha.
Um, we could make the argument that the little bit of Persona talk that we had at the beginning of this episode could have been a precursor.
True. I mean, my last pick's gonna be an RPG, so I'm saving it for last. But
Fair enough. Um, so my last one for this episode is Spider-Man 2. Like
iconic.
speaking of licensed games, Spider-Man 2 is just I don't know. Uh, Again, an example for what I would consider to be a precursor for what we considered for what Spider-Man games have become. Because
The
I've seen,
still the best web slinging, I think, in a video game.
I would definitely agree with that. Because I've watched, I haven't played the current Spider-Man 2 personally, but I've seen my son play it a bunch, and like I it blew my mind how much in that game was literally just lifted straight from the PS2 Spider-Man 2.
Oh yeah, the modern Insomniac Spider-Man games are like literally a mixture of Treyarch's Spider-Man 2 that we're talking about now, and a bit of Batman Arkham. Like they took essentially the best elements of both of those and just made a
Mhm.
also great game. But yeah, Spider-Man 2 on PS2, 360, GameCube. You don't even have to realize it's based off of a movie. Like it is that well made.
Yeah, and it goes much further beyond what the actual movie that it's based on was like. Because yeah, like the basic idea of the story of it is, you got Doc Ock, that whole story, but then there's also like Mysterio shows up at one point. You got I think Reptile shows up, or not Reptile. What the hell is his name?
Oh,
I get confused with Mortal
the lizard,
Kombat.
the
The
lizard,
lizard, yeah, the lizard. I
and
think
then
he fights
Reptile from Mortal
Rhino at one
Kombat
point.
showed up.
Yeah, for real. Everything just went to shit. Yeah, this isn't Mortal Kombat versus DC. What's going on here? Um, don't mind me. I've had a few drinks. Uh, but no, it was just one of those games where there's always something to do. Like you, it wasn't an
Spider-Man, I
RPG, but
lost
it
my
had kind
balloon.
of the fuck that kid and fuck his balloon. Like,
Spider-Man, I lost my
God,
balloon.
how many fucking times have I tried to get that balloon and just could not do it? I don't understand what the hell was wrong with that. Just
So
I
many.
don't know. You just triggered me.
Because it will happen. Everybody who's played that game
Fuck
knows it
that
will
balloon.
happen 100
Fuck that balloon.
times.
Oh god. But no, like I don't know, like just the. I mean, as I've said many times, I don't know if I've said it on this, but Spider-Man growing up was like the Marvel hero to me. Like I was generally a DC kid growing up, and still generally tend to lean DC.
Mhm.
But Spider-Man was the one exception to the rule
Yeah.
that I love Spider-Man. I watched the 90s cartoon. I played the games. I loved my first PG-13 movie was Spider-Man that I went and saw in
That,
theaters.
that was PG-13. Wow.
Yeah.
That would totally
Um,
be PG nowadays.
for sure, for sure. um, but no, like it was just such a well-made game for the time, and I did play the first one a little bit, like before the second one came out, but the second one just completely changed the game for
Mm.
like you know the freedom. Because I don't know if you remember, but the first one like had a very distinct separation between the slinging
Yeah,
and
it
like
was
the
very linear.
like you couldn't just swing around the city because like in the first game, if you fall past a certain point while you're slinging, you just die.
Yeah.
In the second game, like you always have like you could be like this close to the fucking ground and you could sling and save yourself. Um, and there was just like so many little things. Like there was upgrades and stuff. Like it wasn't technically an RPG, but you could buy upgrades. There was always different like robberies or villains or whatever running around that you could just go and save people or stop a bank heist or whatever the fuck. And there's so many like random Spider-Man villains who just get thrown into it.
Yeah, because they
that
had
weren't in the
they had to
movie.
pad out the gameplay.
But it didn't feel forced either. Like it's just such an enjoyable experience. I don't think I've met a single person who's had a negative thing to say about that game.
I'm pretty sure it was considered the best superhero video game up until Batman Arkham Asylum came out.
That's fair. That's another game I need to actually check out. I haven't played like any of the newer Batman games.
The Arkham
Need to get around
trilogy
to
is probably the peak of superhero video games to me.
You know what's one that I really want to play, the Batman Telltale game.
I've heard good things about that. Telltale, that's a company that imploded real fast.
I actually the Walking Dead Telltale games have been on sale for like super cheap. So I finally picked up 2, 3, and 4 for the Switch. So at some point in the future, I'm going to be running through all those games because I need to know how that story ends. Like I played the first one years and years ago when it first came out.
Poor Cindy.
And
Clementine,
Clementine, where are you?
I need to find the battery generator. I'm sorry, Cindy.
Oh god, that was too funny. I need to get her to play that. It's been a while.
Oh man,
I love watching her play those kinds of games. It's so much fun because she gets so freaked out. Like she loves spooky stuff. Like that's like her thing. She loves spooky shit. But like playing that game, like, and we made it a point to only play it at night, and we'd always turn the lights off. And she would play the Walking Dead game, and she would like, because there's like jump scares, there's like the build up, the way that the music swells and stuff. It's like it's like playing a horror movie. It's such a fun game.
Yeah. Clementine?
Yeah, Clementine. Too funny.
Oh man. Yeah, so I guess for my last game for the episode, I was going to talk probably my favorite PS2 game ever, and that is Tales of the Abyss. I'm assuming you've never played Tales of the Abyss.
I have never played any of the Tales games, though I've heard nothing but good things.
Yeah, Tales of the Abyss is a somewhat polarizing entry in the series because it mostly for its main character, who is very his character arc is very distinct, but he starts off as one of the most unlikable protagonists of a video game you'll ever play.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, like I always say when you play not Persona, Tales of the Abyss, you will hate the main character for the first third of the game. And then he goes through one of the biggest character development arcs, I think, in an RPG. And he becomes a great character by the end, but that first third is rough.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the fact that the rest of the party was so fucking awesome, like I would have never finished it. But the Tales series to me is one of my favorite RPGs just because it's super unique. Like they're technically multiplayer RPGs where you can the gameplay itself is a single player, but when you get into battle, you can actually have a buddy join you and you can play like co-op, like have one person control one party member, one person control the other.
That's pretty cool.
Because the way the combat works is the game is like structured like a traditional turn-based RPG where like you go across the world and then you'll run into like an enemy on the screen and then the battle transition will start. Mm-hmm. But once you get into the battle screen, it becomes an action RPG where you control the character and you like do like a hack and slash style combat combos.
So it's kind of like the way Crisis Core is set up.
Kind of, only it's a bit more like stylized. Like it's like
okay.
Tales of the Abyss introduced like free running where like you can run around the battlefield. You're not stuck on a singular plane. Mm-hmm. It's just a cool the whole series is just, it's one of those that's fun. And Abyss to me, I love the story, I love the gameplay, I love the soundtrack, like everything about it. They're super anime. Like one of the big criticisms of the series is that they're super cliche. Like they're just full of anime and RPG cliches, which is a fair point. But I fucking love that shit. So like it's like to me like that stuff's amazing. Like they super anime graphic style. Like they have anime cutscenes. They have fucking anime intros for every game. Just amazing.
Can't argue with that.
Oh yeah, and the stories are super fun. They're charming. Like there's a gimmick in the games called the skit system where you'll be playing game along the game, and occasionally you'll see like a little prompt in the bottom that'll be like you'll press like the select button, I believe, and the characters' portraits will pop up on screen, and they'll just have a little like conversation about either something that's going on in game or it'll be completely random. And it's just fun little character development and stuff. And like sometimes it's plot specific, other times like it's just completely comedic relief. It's just it's super fun stuff like that. Like Tales of the Abyss is great. It's been only released twice. It's on PS2, and then it got a port to 3DS years later, which is a solid port as well. Both are unfortunately really expensive though nowadays.
Bummer.
But yeah, I think that's just about it.
All right, that's a solid first PS2 episode. I'm sure there will be others, or maybe we'll even do episodes on specific games in more detail in the future.
Yeah, maybe we'll try bringing in a guest too for another part, like talk more PS2 games with other people.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Yeah. All right, so that was a good episode, almost 2 hours. Unfortunately, I have a hard cutoff because of work, but yeah, once again, guys, thanks for joining us on Geek Addicts. You can find Geek Addicts on all the major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also find all of our links at linktree/thebarbroom and you can find both audio and video versions of the podcast on YouTube. And recently, we actually have joined the Superpod network of podcast creators, featuring such shows as Superpod Saga, Retro Rehab, Super Ghost Radio, A Novel Console, Fine Time, Gaming Together, along with
too many to list.
Yeah, along with all the GNC shows in one fun little community, and we're growing pretty fast. And you can find all of those shows at superpodnetwork.com. And I'm looking forward to more potential collaborations with all the guests over there. Stay tuned for that.
For sure.
Until next time, guys, we will see you all later.
Have a good one.